dramatic day of testimony in the trial of Joseph Paul DeWise. This time, we're hearing directly from his son.
I'm Mike Dennison in Helena. Northwestern Energy has big plans for new power plants. Coming up, I'll have the details.
Just ahead of 6:30 on this Friday, Chet Lehman, Matt Elwell with you here. We're heading into a very busy time. It is the holiday season. We've already had some Christmas strolls and events going on.
That's right.
Bozeman's Christmas stroll Saturday, Buttes tonight.
That's right.
Weather.
You know, the good news is I think the Buttes Christmas stroll is going to be beautiful weather.
Awesome.
Bozeman's Christmas stroll, it's going to be beautiful weather, but we're going to start to see the transition as you head into Saturday night. So we may start to see some snow, but the temperatures will be just fine. Into the teens and 20s. Remember, some of those Christmas strolls have been frigid across the area. We're not dealing with that, at least in the near term. In fact, if today's any guide, it looks like we'll be into the mid to upper 30s for the afternoon. Our snow chances holding off until you get into the evening tomorrow, and then temperatures likely to fall as we get into the early part of next week. We'll break down your complete forecast, take a look at your Cat Grizz forecast in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Matt. 6:30 now. This Friday, our top local story this half hour, some bombshell testimony yesterday in the deliberate homicide trial for Joseph Paul DeWise. That testimony came from DeWise's own son. MTN's Cody Boyer was there and has more.
Honestly, I didn't know what was going to happen.
Joseph DeWise Jr. sat before the court and his own father, recounting a night at home and weeks of abuse between Paul and Lauren DeWise leading up to it.
I was really going to go back, and before we left the house, he told me to leave my phone on my bed. It was very odd.
Joe says he had witnessed his father place GPS trackers in Lauren's car, caught her with another man. But that night, Joe says his father drove him to where Lauren was staying and told him to wear gloves and a mask. Then they broke in, with Joe saying Paul made him lead the way.
He opened the first door in the hallway. Then what happened? He had his pistol in his right hand, and he opened the door with his left. He stepped just into the line past the threshold, and he turned on the light, and someone was in the room.
Not Lauren. It was Ashley Van Hemert.
The lady said, "Who the F are you?" And he responded with, "Who the F are you?" and shot him 3 times.
Joe says he was standing beside his father as he says Paul DeWise moved on to the next bedroom.
He didn't turn the light on, and I heard my stepmother gasp, and he shot her 2 times. He was terrified, cut off, gasp.
Then Joe says they drove home. He adds his father instructed him to remove his clothes and boots, take a shower, and dispose of ammunition.
He sat down on the couch and started telling me what to say. And if I didn't say certain things, that he could get in a lot of trouble.
Joe says Paul told him to say they had stayed home that night watching TV. And then the next morning, Joe says Paul took him and his sister to church. When police pulled them over on the way home, Joe says he stuck to his father's story.
I was afraid for my dad. What do you do?
Joe says he eventually told the truth weeks later with his mother at his side.
I just gave him the story that I was going to tell.
In Gallatin County District Court, Cody Boyer, MTN News.
Now, yesterday was day 4 of what is expected to be a 10-day trial. No word yet if DeWise will take the stand himself. In other headlines this morning, one man is dead following a traffic stop yesterday in East Helena. According to Sheriff Leo Dutton, the man was stopped near the intersection of Highway 12 and Lane Avenue. At the time of the stop, authorities were looking for an individual and vehicle related to report of a domestic disturbance in the Helena Valley. Sheriff Dutton says a fish and game officer stopped the vehicle. Law enforcement officers negotiated with the man for about a half an hour before he fatally shot himself. East Helena School District posted on Facebook that its school had been placed in a soft lockdown because of that incident, and Highway 12 was closed for a portion of the day for the investigation. Lewis and Clark County Sheriff Leo Dutton says no officers fired their weapons during that stop. Also, Northwestern Energy has mapped out a plan for acquiring hundreds of megawatt hours of additional power in Montana. That plan gets a public hearing next week and is not without controversy. MTN's Mike Dennison tells us what's in the plan and why it's facing criticism.
Northwestern Energy already generates at least half the electricity it needs to serve its 370,000 Montana customers, and at peak consumption times buys the rest on the open market. But the company's plan says that regional market will tighten in the near future, and that Northwestern wants to buy or build 750 megawatts of its own generation in the next 5 years, twice as much as it has now.
The biggest takeaway from Northwestern's perspective on what this plan sets forth is the critical need that our portfolio has, and that need is not for intermittent types of generation, but what we call 24/7 generation that we can turn on and off according to the portfolio's needs.
The initial plan said that need is best met by new natural gas-fired power plants. Now, after some public criticism of the plan, Northwestern says it will ask for bids on any source of power, including wind, solar, pumped storage, energy efficiency, or natural gas.
We're now going out for the competitive solicitation to let the market provide the actual data.
But Brian Fady of the Montana Environmental Information Center in Helena believes the initial plan underestimated the potential cost of natural gas-fired plants. And he worries that Northwestern is still predisposed to favor gas plants over cleaner and perhaps cheaper energy.
The gas plants that Northwestern seems to want to build, those are an economic risk for our future. And wind and solar, they don't have that same economic risk because they have no fuel cost.
He also notes the plan assumes coal-fired power from Colstrip will continue for the next 20 years.
That's a big risk to consumers if you're not mapping out what would happen if that plant does close in the next 20 years, and how should the utility respond in a least cost way.
Hines says Northwestern believes part of Colstrip can continue for another 20 years, and that without it, even more new plants would have to be built at great expense. He also isn't sure whether renewable power projects, wind or solar, can provide the type of power needed on a consistent basis.
I need to be able to feel comfortable that we have power available when it's 40 below zero and people are relying on electricity to heat their homes.
The plan goes before the Public Service Commission for a hearing on Monday. As explained by Commissioner Roger Koopman of Bozeman, the PSC can't change the plan, but can act as a sounding board for the public and provide its own insight.
I think sometimes utilities can kind of get onto a track. They get committed to a certain approach, and it's good for them to hear from other minds that have a lot to say and think as well.
Something else the plan doesn't include. What will be the cost of these new plans to ratepayers? That comes later, when Northwestern submits the actual projects to the PSC for its review and approval. In Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Now, Mike tells us Northwestern says it's planned to begin the bidding process for new plants and resources within the next 2 months. In a related story this morning, Northwestern Energy has just finalized a new 6-year deal with the Westmoreland Rosebud Mining Company. That new agreement takes effect on January 1st and will provide coal for the Colstrip power plant. The Rosebud mine is a 25,000-acre surface mine complex in the Powder River Basin. Northwestern says the new deal will allow Colstrip to continue to provide affordable energy during times of peak demand. Also, according to the latest American Health ranking, Montana is in the middle when it comes to overall health of its population. The report shows Montana at number 24, which is down 3 positions from last year's report. State's biggest challenges: excessive drinking, low levels of childhood immunizations, and a low number of primary care physicians. But here's what we're doing right. We have a low level of obesity, low level of diabetes, and a low numbers of chlamydia cases. The report also shows Montana's high school graduation rate has gone from 82% to nearly 86%. By the way, Vermont has the best health ranking in the country. Mississippi has the nation's worst. We're going to take a quick break here on Montana this morning. When we come back, we'll have the latest on the memorial service for a little boy who lost his life in Great Falls. We'll also have this from CBS This Morning.
Ahead on CBS This Morning, an exclusive with Mike Bloomberg, the newest presidential candidate. The former New York City mayor tells Gail why he decided to run, and he discusses his plan to combat gun violence. Plus, 4 decades and 10 Grammys. Kennedy Center honoree Linda Ronstadt on being her own toughest critic, and her fear, yes, her fear of her songs living forever online. We'll see at 7.